I work at Beechfield College, and I've worked there for 11 years. I am transitions and referrals coordinator, so normally first point of call. So when you ring, it will be me that you speak to. When you come and visit, it will be me that does the visit. When we do the assessment, I'll be part of the assessment team. So and also when students and young people come to us, anybody's got any problems, it'll be me they come to. So cover quite a wide range of roles within my actual role as well. As I was saying, my experience really is personal experience with my nieces and nephews. So some of the things that that I'm talking about is from things that I found helpful for them, also things that we found helpful for our young people that are transitioning into college as well. So so we'll just see we go. So aims for today. So just to think about what transitions might be like for individuals on on the autism spectrum, to highlight the importance of communication. I think that's really, really important. Something that we try to, or I personally try to have parents, professionals, carers involved as much as possible, so everybody knows what's going on when it's going on, and then to look at practical and meaningful things that you can do to support an individual's transition. So I suppose we should start by saying what is a transition. So transition is we've all transitioned from one thing to another in our lives. So it's the period of kind of adjustment, recalibration, adaptation as we move from one stage of life to another, or one thing to another. Transition to adulthood, I think is, that's a big transition, isn't it, for a lot of our young people. They're going from, for example, from children's services to adult services. They're going from school to, college or work or university or wherever they might be transitioning onto. So for young people and their families, transition, from that school to adulthood is crucial, really, for everything else that comes after that. Really, we can get that. If we can do that positively, then we might be onto something then. So transition from school to adulthood, to college, we see that as a positive thing. We want that to be a positive thing. It should be a time of celebration, change, but it is also, for a lot of young people, a time of challenge as well. So they're going from something that a lot of young people and families that come from the schools that we work with, they may have been at the school for a long, long time. They've been there since they were little tots. So, and they're coming to us, and that's all they've ever known. And then, they're coming to Beechwood, and it's like, this is new. So we want to try and make that as positive as possible. So young people, in terms of transition, before they come to college, they might be considering making decisions. They could be making decisions about their career, continuing education, social life, where they're going to be living. There's loads of different things that they could be thinking about. And these transitions can be tricky for any one of us. I know, when I went from school to university, that was a very big transition for me, because I was moving away from home. I was going from a very small island to the mainland, so it was very tricky for me. But for those young people that we support with additional learning needs, you've got another level of complexity really to add into that to think about. And so many of these young people, they need to have access to timely and comprehensive information. So the sooner we for some people, the sooner we start that process, the better, and we can get things going in the background, and then carry on with that. So for others, they might need a lot more support than that from a range of services to enable that that transition to be as successful as possible. So when I was researching this talk many years ago, because I've done this talk for a while, and worked at the college for a while. So as I said before, effective communication is essential to ensure that transition is as smooth as possible for the young person. And I've found over my years that sometimes, there's little easily available information on sort of practical approaches. A lot of the times we get parents that will come to us and say, we didn't even know Beechwood existed, or we didn't know what was out there for our young person, or social services have told us to just go out there and find somewhere for our young person. So already we're kind of facing those difficulties. So 3 things for us that we want to make a priority is that work and communicate positively across different agencies. So whether that's between us, school, parents, carers, social services, health, whoever that might be, to ensure that what the young person and their families communicate is listened to as well. We want to take on what our parents and our young people, what they're actually telling us, what they want out of the process, and then communicate the transition process to the young person. So however that is to be communicated to them. And I think, and this is where from my own personal kind of experience, is that young people and families can often have quite low expectations about what's possible for transition. I know, as I say, with my own family, we didn't know when my nephew was transitioning from primary school to secondary school how that was going to work, how he was going to get there, because my first thought was, he's never going to manage on a bus or get in there. What's going to happen? What's going to happen when he gets there? Is he going to have somebody that he's going to know? Is he going to have friends? What's going to happen really? So our experience from that point of view was quite negative, because we didn't have anybody telling us this is what's going to happen, this is what should happen, and so we sometimes as well, even before that, we found that professionals sometimes, a lot of transition plans. Sorry, my hearing-aids falling out now as well. We found professionals lead on a lot of transitions, and sometimes they might not necessarily listen to what the families and the young people actually want. So they have a shopping list of what they think the young person should be getting, and that might be a little bit different to what the young person and their families want. So rather than using that transition opportunity to find out what the young person wants, being able to for what they want to achieve in future, so that their strengths and their skills can be built on. So we find at Beechwood that we have to listen, and where necessary then work out ways to communicate with the young person, and that can take days, weeks, months. So when we have anybody that has their funding agreed, the next step, parents and families will say, what happens next? And we say, well, we hold a transition planning meeting, and then we'll talk about what transition is going to look like, because it is different for everybody. So, we've had transitions over the years where it's been quite straightforward. We've had, parents and professionals say to us, what's going to work for this young person is if we just drop them off on day one and that's it, and that's worked. And then we've had young people who, families who've said, they're going to need like at least a once a week visit, and that's going to have to be over a period of months, and we're going to have to build that up to tea time visits if they're staying with us residentially. So we're not a one size fits all approach at Beechwood. We're very much in the in the camp of what's going to work for that young person and what's going to meet their needs. So I said about communication. I keep going on about communication throughout this, but it is really, really important. So I said about working and communicating positively across different agencies, and just to make sure that everybody is listened to, and then sort of obviously communicate that process, the transition process to the young person. So putting our young people and their families at the centre of the process, that is really important. Parents have got obviously a really unique insight into their young people's lives and what's going to work, their strengths, their knowledge, their experience, that can be difficult for us as professionals to understand and appreciate as well. So again, that's really important for us, is to get that family perspective on that young, on the young person. So as it is really important to enable the young person to advocate for themselves as well, if they can. Obviously, families will advocate for them as well, and to work in partnership with parents and families to identify what the young person might want for themselves for the future. And then also, that's really effective for us to be able to, reassure parents that, we're on the same page. That's exactly what we want for the young person. So putting the young person and their families at the centre of that process, we find is, key to successful transition and placement. If we've got parents working with us collaboratively, put my teeth in, then we want that that process to kind of happen, really. So that's really important for us. So we're going to get on to practical tips now. So practical, pop my teeth in, I can't talk. Practical tip number 1. So visuals. So visual information is really easily remembered in comparison to verbal cues. So listening to me speaking today, if perhaps maybe you're not taking notes, or you might not remember everything I say. You might not remember everything I say anyway. But if anybody wants to copy this presentation, that's absolutely fine. I can send that out. So by using visuals, so 10% of verbal information, it says is retained after 3 days versus 65% that's retained after 3 days when supported by visual information. I know myself that if I'm looking at something, I like to see lots of visuals as well, so I can remember that and think, oh yeah, I remember that. And then visuals can be a really sort of powerful tool in helping young people with additional needs to process and understand and remember sort of important information about their transition. It can also empower them then to express their views and their dreams and their aspirations more clearly for others to listen to as well. Practical tip number 2. So work out who does what. So some of these things on this list, I divided up the kind of practical things that we can do into things that potential placements and services can do to help, and what we can do as facilitators of transitions. So that might be us as schools, colleges, parents, carers, social workers, etc. It's no means exclusive, exhaustive, but it just gives you an idea of things that could help support young people into next stage of their kind of transitions, really. So things like visits. I mentioned before that when anybody comes to Beechwood, they'll normally meet with me. So we do visits. We can do as many visits as anybody needs. So normally I say first visit, parents come along, just because it can be quite boring for the young person if they're just listening to me talk and mum and dad talking. It can be quite boring for them. So they can always come back then if they think Beechwood. Definitely want Beechwood as an option. Then bring the young people with them for any other visits that they might need. We can do as many of those as possible. Again, visual information, things like key people who you might see around the college. So sometimes people will want to know who they're going to speak to. They want that almost kind of safe person that they can speak to about what's happening, what might happen. Timetables, schedules, checklists, all of those things are going to be really important. And then again, facilitators, same sort of thing, visits, countdowns, when we're going to Beechwood next, what that's going to look like, what's going to happen when we get there. So I've got my notes here, sorry. Yeah, I mentioned obviously about visits. So that is, for us, I think one of the most important practical steps that we can do to help young people understand what college is for us, or what Beechwood is, and allowing time for the young people to explore that new environment as well. And that might take, sometimes we've had over the years where young people, they won't get out of the car, in their first visit. The second visit, they might get out and they might, have a little nose around, and then they go back into the car. It might be the third, fourth, fifth visit that they actually spend a decent amount of time at the college. So we'll build on that, but it's it's really, we feel it's really important. So lots of colleges, other colleges, they will do exactly the same. Universities, schools, they all do visits, but we believe that it's important that this visits are done enough times for the young person so that they feel comfortable. So when they're then going to be transitioning into the college, they're going to be very comfortable with their surroundings and know what's happening and when it's happening. So again, visual information. They probably sound like a bit of a stock record, I think, but visual information, again, very important. So having pictures or videos, a video tour, which we do have, of the college to show some of our young people what it's like as well, because sometimes when schools start introducing the idea of moving on from school, that can be quite a scary experience. So a lot of our young people will say, "Oh, we saw the video, and I saw you have, you have this or you have that at the college, and I saw that on the video." So it's a great way of allowing young people to get a feel for the place before they even visit. So that's really good. So we have on our website, we have a map which you can see there of all the things that we have at the college, which is quite colourful. So again, young people can look at that as a kind of guide, and then providing things like staff names of anybody that's going to be important. So things like, for us, that is, teachers, key workers, any members of the clinical therapy team, anybody that the students might see around the college on a regular basis, so they know who to speak to. Timetables. So we love a timetable. I love a timetable. I like to know what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and how long it's going to last for. So, I find for myself that for me creates less uncertainty, that gives me less anxiety, so I know what's happening and when it's happening. So this is an example. Again, we can send these out as well, because if you can't see them, you can see how everything for us is broken down into small manageable chunks. So we have a session, then we have a break, session lunch, session break, session home. So we would give our young people a timetable. They all have their own individual timetables. Again, it lessens that kind of anxiety for them if they know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. We can do that when we have transition visits. So we have a transition timetable as well of what that might look like. So we find that quite helpful for our young people. Practical tip number 6, FAQs. So having any kind of frequently asked questions readily available for our young people, because we do get, one of the things, a lot of the questions are, who's going to help me if I need help? I know who to go to at school or wherever I've come from before coming to college, but I don't know who to ask for help. What if I'm late? What if the taxi's running late? What's going to happen? Are you all going to go off to do something very nice without me? Are you going to wait for me? What's going to happen? So, we have at our college anyway, an easy read sheet of kind of FAQs that our young people can access on there. We also, our clinical team will work with the young people and their families as well to do social stories for kind of specific, situations as well. So that's also quite helpful. Practical tip number 7. I think this is quite important as well. So examine previous transitions. So what's worked in the past, what hasn't worked. We want to do more of what has worked and less of what hasn't worked in the past. So that if it didn't work, why didn't it work? Was there something that we that particular transition we could have done better, or we didn't do enough of? So we talk about kind of previous transitions, and in particular, I think positive transitions. So making it a positive experience rather than having that kind of negative, like, we moved, we did have a transition and it didn't go very well. Talk about the positive experiences and the positive transitions and any similarities that we can kind of get involved in, really. Practical tip number 8, social stories. So I mentioned about our clinical therapy team. They will write as many social stories as you need them to on a variety of different topics. We create an account of what's going to be happening to the young person, either pictures, photographs, again of in this situation for our college, to help them prepare for that new experience, for them to become familiar with the situation and to respond appropriately. They can be as complex or as simple as you need them to be, but they do need to match what the young person's sort of level of comprehension. And then we can read through that several times. I've read through many social stories to my nieces and nephews of what's going to happen and what that's going to look like. And as I said, our clinical therapy team are always on hand to work with young people and their families about what might be needed. Challenge accepted. So once we have maybe done some of those things, transition is kind of on, really. So change can be positive thing as well as a negative thing. I know most people regardless of age, I still get resistant to kind of change as well. I like, I like what I like, and that's how I like it. So, but if we make it a positive thing, which we try to do at our college, and view it in a positive light, we hope that will make, transitions quite successful. So what skills a young person has to be able to manage and utilise in the new situation, and the level of similarities between old and new environments. Again, that's something that we, the way our college is set up, if anybody's visited us, or if anybody would like to visit us, that would be fine as well. You see how we're kind of set up. Sometimes that's very similar to how some of the schools that we work with, how they're set up to kind of lessen that transitional shock. But building success in our sort of young people's lives and challenging their negative thinking is one of the best ways for us to be able to increase their self-belief and ultimately to successfully undertake their transition. That's enough from me. Thank you very much for listening to me. I don't know if anybody's got any questions or anybody wants to come chat to me.
I've got a question. Obviously, transition is sometimes difficult for parents as well. Have you got any tips or had any experiences where, maybe the child's ready to transition, ready to go to a new environment, but the parents are really holding them back and are anxious about that transition themselves, it's feeding into the child?
Yeah, it is. It's really common because it is, again, it's, you've had that safety net of, if we take school to college, for example, you've had that safety net, who the staff are, who your young person is working with, their taxi driver, if they get taxied into school or however they get transported in. So for us, communication is key. So from that first visit, you'll be told, email, come and visit us as many times, ring me, it's no problem at all, as many questions as you have, because I know what it's like with having a young person myself transitioning through different stages of their life. So it is common. We do see that a lot. I always encourage our parents who have got young people with us to speak to parents that are coming through that process as well, because as much as I can stand and tell everybody about the college and how wonderful it is, essentially I get paid to do that. So I always say to people, go and speak to our parents, because they'll tell you the rough with the smooth, they'll tell you the things that we didn't maybe quite get right, because we don't always get it right, and there are things that we don't do as well as we could do, and we want to learn from that experience. So I always tell parents, especially if we've got parents coming from a particular school, for example, I'll say, do you know so and so, and perhaps you'd like to speak to them and their experiences of how they found transition, if there's anything that we can do there. So kind of almost like a mentor or a buddy up system, I suppose, through, you've got that contact there. You'll have the contact details of everybody at the college. So clinical therapy team, if you've got any specific questions about any sort of clinical needs that you're worried about, perhaps you've been lucky enough to have a fantastic school where they've got on-site clinical therapy input there as well, and you've got a really good relationship with speech and language therapy team, and you're worried about how that's going to work at the college. So we would do things like that as well. So we try to hold our parents' hands as much as we can do through the process. So that was a really good question, actually. Anybody else? There we go. Looks like I'm off the hook. Thank you so much for coming to listen to me, and I hope you've really enjoyed the show. I know I have as well. So.